Hey, Internet. This is Ron Williams with Hoodle, and excited to be able to visit with you today and introduce another person. One of the cool things about Hoodle is ever since we've been doing this, we've been meeting really amazing people that just do a variety of things that educate us and are going to be able to educate you about how to grow your business better. And I've got one of those people on the line with us today, a gentleman by the name of Mike Wilkerson that you are going to love to hear from. We met Mike, where was it, in St. Louis, Mike, a few months ago.
At the Home and Garden Show, right.
At the Home and Garden Show, the St. Louis Home and Garden Show. And Mike has an amazing story, and he's got an amazing business where he really is helping people to get their larger voice out on the web, particularly through podcasting. And I'll let you tell about that in just a second, Mike. But and I don't know if you got any screenshots or something. Maybe we can put it in the show notes. But would love to show people the mobile bug system as well. So at any rate, Mike is from St. Louis and has a business called Two Guys Talking and a variety of other businesses. And he's going to share with us today how to start podcasting, what is podcasting about. So stick around. This is going to be important to you. But Mike, before we jump in any further, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background? How did you get started this, and what important thing are you doing in the world today?
Well, I'm capturing perspective. For 13 years inside of my previous professional life, I was a professional sign language interpreter for the deaf. And what I really adored about that job was it allowed me to jump into someone's life for just a moment, help them get what they needed to, learn more about them, and then jump right back out. And I've really found that same flavor, that same pizzazz that's inside of podcasting that was inside of interpreting. The difference is that I love all the stories that I hear because many of them are not only entertainment based, but it allows me to tell people about me and what I've done in my life and bring in friends that I've known for a very long time to talk about stuff that we experienced way back when we were kids. For anyone that's listening, the value and the power of nostalgia. And I love to be a conveyor of inspirational moments that create nostalgia inside of your life in regard to television, feature films, and streaming media. So that's where it all really started inside of podcasting. My podcasting adventure started 12 years ago. It'll be 13 coming up in September of this year.
Wow.
And it's been a really great ride, mostly because it was all pioneering. I felt very much like the people that arrived here in North America and just started heading west. There were just very sketchy outlines of what were the rules. That really attracted me to podcasting because I've had my own talk show essentially since I was 11 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, the generation of Two Guys Talking really is my best friend Carlo, and we went to go see Raiders of the Lost Ark in 1981. And after having seen Raiders of the Lost Ark, he and I got in the back of his dad's minivan, and we had what was essentially our first Two Guys Talking show. Where we talked about, what you see in regard to director panache, in regard to the acting that you saw, the action scenes, how they were choreographed, and so it's fun to come, real full circle where later on. Carlo and I were able to review the original Raiders of the Lost Ark. The difference was I was sponsored by Sprint, and it was 35 years later. And that full circle of being able to complete something that was and now is in a different form is really, really alluring.
Wow. Yeah, and it's amazing to think that podcasting has even been around for 12, 13 years. So, you had to be one of the very first guys that were doing this. What the interesting thing is, a lot of people still don't know what podcasting is.
Right.
Or maybe they've heard about it, and it seems like something that's just, too techy, too overwhelming. But maybe you can tell us a little bit, give us a high level, if you were to put podcasting in, 1 to 3 sentences, how would you define that?
Well, it's really easy. It's 2 words for me. It's captured perspective.
Okay.
Everyone on the planet has a perspective. It is unlike everyone else's. It will never be the same as anybody else's, no matter how. So what I tell people to share your perspective. I put it online, either on your website or in an ongoing podcast set, and I help you find a way to monetize it, whether it's just as an augment inside of your website environment that helps people understand your skill set, or if it becomes, a program, a show, for lack of a better term, where there are a series of sponsors. There are ways to bolster. Now, you're just a listener, or you're all who wants to support a broadcast show.
Wow. So, you're really helping people to find their voice. And I got to say, Mike, you've been helpful to me and to us, in thinking through this whole process and how do we begin this, because it's a little intimidating, the idea of starting to create video and creating audio files and putting them out and having all the mechanisms set up. But, obviously you've been doing this a long time. And I noticed when we were down in St. Louis how you really put everybody at ease and put us at ease and helped us to think through that. So podcasting.
Yeah, something that we have inside this room today. Obviously, you see all the tech and the gorgeous stuff that we have here, and that's awesome.
Right.
But by no stretch do you have to have all of this awesome to get podcasting. More importantly, what you need is you need to know your story and your skill set. If you know your stories and your skill set, I'll help you take those stories and skill set to the web or into a formal podcast environment and help you monetize them. That's really, if I had to, boil it all down to what I help people do in regard to podcasting, that's what I do. Whether you're a grandfather that has sage advice that you'd like to shower on, not only your, say, granddaughter or your family that might tune into the podcast, but if you're, let's say, a professional psychoanalyst and an elder attorney who gather and talk about how make sure their clients don't get scammed, well, we've now turned that into a monetized effort that is now sponsored by Western Union. Western Union is very interested in making sure that people don't get scammed. More importantly, if they do get scammed, that Western Union is not a part of it because they want to act responsibly. Those are the kind of tethers that I make when I go and I help hunt and find sponsors for podcasters. Wow. It really is about finding a unique story. You talked about lending a voice. I definitely help people craft their podcast voice, but very often it's just them. It really is finding the people that have unique stories and skill sets and then delivering them a concept that gets them into some structure that allows them to take that to the web, to the internet in general.
So now you've talked about sponsoring, and I've heard you talk about that before. What does that kind of look like? So you're saying there's people that are building a online radio program or a podcast program, and they're actually getting companies that are coming alongside and saying, "Hey, we want to be your advertiser, your sponsor." Is that normal? Does that happen very often? Is it hard to do for somebody?
The answer is yes to all of your short questions there. Is it happening often with me? It's one of my goals. Obviously, when I find a sponsor, I make some money as well as the podcasters, as well as the network. So, duh, it's just numbers, stupid, right? But more importantly, is it happening more often? Yes, without question. Is it happening to everyone? Absolutely not. It is not happening to everybody. The fact of the matter is that I don't create radio programming. In fact, I don't usually create programs that even feel like a radio program. They'll have some of the hallmarks. There happen to be microphones in front of people that they're speaking into. But that's really kind of where all the tether ends. There might even be commercial breaks inside of it. There might be a bumper on the front end of the program. But other than those hallmarks, I always try to make something that isn't just you could one-to-one it for a radio program. All the podcast programming that we make also always has some sort of educational nugget in it. What that means is that after listening to any episode of any program that we have, you will have learned something. I can't tell you what it would be, but even inside of our, reasonably, hey, stupid comic book show on Tuesdays on ABC, we're teaching people how to value not only their time, but the value of really good programming.
Right.
The time that you take to spend watching a television screen or going into a feature film, it's very much like, and especially in regard to either the television or feature film, you literally open up your wallet, pull out money, and give it to the people that convey that information. Well, it's exactly the same when you walk into a feature film theater, where you go in, you pay your money, you watch. Well, not only have you paid your money, you're also spending the time and effort to sit there and watch it. And what I've always known is that because I'm doing that, I expect something back, i.e. quality. And when I don't get quality, I make sure that the people that created whatever it is I'm watching or experiencing know how I feel about it and how I think maybe it would be turned into something better. Now, does that mean we always get love from all the people that have created something that we're sometimes complaining about? Or do we get praise when we are praising things? Not all the time, no. But that general concept of making sure that you understand that when you expend time and money like that, you should expect something back. And if you're not, that's a rub. It really is.
Right, that you're going to get value out of it. And well, that's a really important perspective that you're sharing with us. And tell me something about the trends with podcasting. I know it's been around for 12, 13 years. And for a lot of us, it's really just kind of beginning as well. What are you seeing? Do you know anything about the numbers or how it's trending, the last couple of years here?
Well, it's exploded in just the last several years. That's often with the help of a series of on fire labeled style podcast efforts. The one that I'm referring to is where there's essentially an academy where people learn to interview people, or rather not learn to interview people, but learn to have a program where they interview people. Very typically, those turn into where there's the same 10 questions that you're asking each of your guests. And as you can imagine, that's not something I foster, mostly because it's almost completely unoriginal. Listening to somebody ask the same 10 questions to 100 different people, how long are you going to be listening to that program? Because I know I wouldn't be very long.
Right.
The other thing that really needs to be an inspired piece of what you're creating is that educational nugget. The educational nugget is what's enabled me to sell/go in front of a sponsor and say, hey, I think I've got a program that can convey a lot of the things that you do, and you appearing inside of that program as a sponsor, I think would benefit you ultimately and wonderfully. And that's mostly because there's a perpetual advertising aspect of podcasting that we actually sell inside of the Two Guys Talking network cone of stuff that is perpetual advertising. Remember that after a podcast is created, especially if it's listed where there are no dates or timed anything inside of it, that program can live on forever. Now, if you add on the educational nuggets that I'm talking about, and let's say you've got several educational nuggets inside of that, now you're talking about creating a resource that can live online in an on-demand capacity. And see, that's what I saw back in 1981. And that is that I wish that somehow I'd have been able to record that show that Carlo and I had created, because I could go back and learn a lot from me as an 11-year-old. But being able to go back to things where you get unique perspectives of people, you get educational nuggets about what you're watching, and that lives there forever, 24/7, 365. I've just described the advertising opportunity that every company on planet Earth would want. They just have to learn about it. And that's what I try to help do.
Wow. And podcasting also gives you the opportunity to really narrow in on one focused niche market, right?
It really does. The value of having what you're referring to is the meat topic. Inside of a podcast, it doesn't mean that you must do only one thing, but having a center core meat topic that traditionally is a specialty really does benefit you inside the line of podcasting. There's no question that people have a variety of skill sets, almost like a Swiss Army knife. But you'll note that each one of those specific Swiss Army knife things does specific things. Being able to focus on those things and then corral them, just like a Swiss Army knife does, well, that makes the Swiss Army knife that much more valuable, as long as you can go in and talk about one of those things. You don't have a let's say a central core of fishing line inside of a traditional Swiss Army knife. Does that mean that they couldn't incorporate one? No, but it's not what you use the knife for as a specialty, right?
Right. So
it's
now
very much the same concept.
Yeah. So now our audience is, for the business of building is, of course, home builders, right, and land developers and people that are in the home building industry. I want to just kind of riff with you for a minute and work with me on this. And, what are some ideas? So I wonder if we could come up with any ideas of how this might apply doing a podcast if it was a builder. And a lot of, frankly, a lot of guys, this is going to be over the top for them. But, sure, it's valuable information. It's something that they need to know. But I wonder what some ideas are that the ways that a builder might use a podcast to get their larger voice out on the web and to attract an audience. What do you think? Do you have any ideas on that?
Well, I do. You have to remember that each builder not only comes from their own upbringing in regard to how they learn to build a home.
Right.
The home builder, regardless if it's the guy with a hammer in his hand or the people that own the company that are the builders, they will all tell you, and we know this from the Home and Garden Show in St. Louis recently, where we had the podcast bug.
Right.
What we noted from every single one of the people that we talked to is that they have a unique way of doing business, and that's why you should be doing business with them. What they often never realize is that those core principles are exactly what will propel their podcast content. Sure, they all might build 3-bedroom, 2.5 bathroom homes that are a level of quality above other builders. Sure, they might all do that. But why is that? Is it because they're using unique materials? Is it because they're using a different standard of general building technology? Is it because they take longer because there's more craftsmanship enabled? Is it that they have a staff of people that are unmatched compared to other builders? Being able to focus in and convey on just those specific things really does allow, frankly, them to appear in a program like yours to tell people why they need to be coming to them as a builder, and then you become a central hub for all of those people. But more importantly, that knowledge that now is a central repository of knowledge for people to come and learn from.
Mm-hmm. You know, you're right. And I've had a lot of builders in the past when I've talked to them and said, you know, that in different ways they share with me, you know, Ron, if we could just have the conversation with somebody, you know, if we can get connected with them. And, you know, when I think of podcasting, this is a way for them to get their message, their persona, their value proposition, their unique values out in front of people even before they have that conversation. You know, another thing
probably even before they even realize it. The piece that you're kind of dancing around inside of your description there is the story. Everybody goes back to the core of podcasting for me, which is perspective. Perspective is the story of somebody that encapsulates everything that is them, whether it's their skill set, their upbringing, their professional learning process, their overall attitude, either in regard to business or their own self, and then any of those other litany of things that comprise you. Well, all of those things are included inside of a podcast, at least the ones that I try and govern, because that's what makes that podcast something different than somebody sitting in front of a microphone, hitting the record button, blathering for 32 minutes, and hitting the stop button.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we don't make. The one is to make something where you get to jump into an environment, experience something that you never knew or are learning from, and then you move on to the next one. It's that on-demand learning concept. It's been around a long time, but podcasting really is the true delivery method to make that happen.
Absolutely. I tell you what, since I've discovered podcasting, every time I'm on the road, you know, if I'm driving by myself someplace, I've got a podcast on, and there's so many good ones. I'm always constantly learning stuff.
Yeah.
And so, you know, and builders, you know, I know you guys driving around in your trucks from subdivision to project, checking on your crews. You're in your trucks most of the day. This would be a great learning space for you as well to download a podcasting app and really hone your skills. Another thing that I've always thought of with podcasting is, or like what we're doing here with live casting as well, is to, you know, for a builder to actually be able to interview one of their clients and talk to one of their customers, record the conversation so that other people in the outside world can hear really a testimonial from a customer about that builder. But
that's what I was going to refer to, is that it becomes the perfect testimonial because it's literally in their words. There's a difference between hiring someone like me that's going to try and craft something for you to either read or have read by somebody, and then somebody that was a customer or is a customer of yours, telling other people why they need to be using your skill sets, your trade craft, and more importantly, you. Okay, well, if you've got that encapsulated inside of a testimonial, very much like what we're recording today, that's a complete game changer when you talk about testimonials.
Right. So, I mean, you know, there's just no way that not using the web, you're just not going to be able to get your personality and your brand and your message out there nearly as well as you can. And what did you call it the first time we met? I think you called this evergreen content. That, you
Right.
know, when you're doing a podcast, it's something that basically means it lives on forever, right?
It can always be gone back to is kind of the definition I give it. Again, inside of my cone of business, I call it what is essentially perpetual advertising, because everything that is a program inside of the cubby of Two Guys Talking is a potential advertising opportunity. But yeah, the evergreen content is something that is a very common idea inside of everything internet, in that if you went to a document that talks about the 5 best ways to blah, with exception, most of those things will stay the same and be on top of the chart as a 1 through 5 listing. Well, that's something you would call an evergreen document that you can continue to send people to so that they can go and learn from it. But then depending on which tools you're using to monitor their activity, you can actually see if people are going to that to see if they want to learn more. And then you tap them on the shoulder and say, hey, I was just wondering if you want to know more about blah. And of course they do, because they just downloaded a document that you saw.
So it really can help people builders to target their business message as well,
Right.
towards what do people want to hear, what do they want to learn more about.
Not only that, and I think it's something we're going to talk about in a future podcast, but the concept of marketing automation delves specifically into what we're talking about right now, which is, let's say a builder has 300 people that are, or 300 outlets that are customers. And if you send a blast email talking about a new service that you have or a feature that you can put into something, and you see that of those 300, there were about 85 that cared at all about it. They clicked on it, they went to a resource, they watch a video, they download a document, they go and watch a slideshow or a presentation that you put online. Well, if you can see all of that stuff, what you've now been able to do is go, I need to figure out the time that it takes me to speak to 300 different people or entities. And I've now chopped that into a third for only 85 people that are interested in what I want to be able to provide them. And now you're conveying the time, effort, and energy, as well as all the manpower involved, to those people that are interested, rather than trying to shotgun blast and hoping things are going to work. Because there's way too many businesses still. I'm in a co-working environment right now inside of the East Studio here. It's in a place called Tech Artista. Okay. And there's about 40 different businesses of all different sizes, whether it's 1 person or 10 people. And all of those businesses, many of them are not yet using the concept of marketing automation. What that means, it's becoming that shotgun opportunity, i.e., boy, they're going to love this. Did they love it? I don't know. Why don't we try contacting somebody and see what happens? That's a long road to hoe, where in reality, rather than shotgun blasting, you could be the sniper that's delivering something into their delivery right into their email address. And then you can see whether they care about it at all or not. And the people that do care are the ones you want to pay attention to. That's the short concept of marketing automation. It gets really, really deep and long-reaching with tendrils everywhere. But that's the core of, you got 300, you want to find 85 that are ready to spend money and get all of them. Then after those 85 are done, then you start branching out to the other people that haven't bought from you yet, or you go and acquire new ones.
I tell you,
that's
go ahead.
marketing automation.
Yeah, I think there's so many spin-off values to this whole thing that we're talking about. It's just amazing. I mean, you've mentioned that you can niche, focus a lot better. You can get in front of the people that really are interested in your business message, right? And you can target the message that you give to them. You can create evergreen content. You can reach more people than you can if you just pick up the phone and start calling people or sending out an email. And the other thing that comes to mind for me is there's very few companies that are actually utilizing these new tools that are out here. I know a lot of times, Mike, we'll do a 3-minute video. We'll go and interview a builder for 3 or 5 minutes, and we'll put it out on different social media channels. And within days, it's been seen by 3 or 4 or 5,000 people. Right. And you're just going, my gosh, you couldn't get that if you were interviewed by, CNN or something.
Yeah, there's two other aspects that tag onto that. One is your resource lives 24/7, 365 as a podcast file.
Right.
It lives online, whether it's video or audio. It doesn't really make any difference. Although I would steer people towards audio. You're going to get more listens and attention via audio podcast than you will via audio or via video.
Okay.
It's just the way that it's built. You can do more things while you're listening at the same time than you can having a video and then doing something also. It's just the way the numbers have stacked up over the last decade.
Right.
That's the first thing, is that it lives forever. While you sleep, Ron, your resources inside of your podcast library continue to work for you 24/7, 365. What kind of value do you put on that? I don't know, but it sounds like it's a lot, right?
It's amazing.
The second big thing is that this is what turns on potential sponsors, is that the people that would come and are coming to listen to your program here inside of the Cone of Hoodle are not coming to learn about knitting. They're not coming to figure out how to make a great donut. They're not coming to figure out how to sift the kitty litter. They're coming here to learn more about building. And the sponsors know that. At least they need to find out from either you or someone like me that would help go find a sponsor for you. Is, you know, it's a focused set of people that are already interested in everything that you are potentially interested in. Well, if you're a sponsor, why wouldn't you want to shoot at those things rather than having to have, again, that if you've got 300,000 potential people and all you want to hit are the people that are interested in building or are builders, why wouldn't you only hit the people that are builders or are interested in building first?
Exactly. Yeah.
And the answer is, of course you should. That's why podcasts need to be sponsored.
Right. So, you know, Mike, as we're winding down here in the last few minutes here, you know, real quickly, I guess there's a couple things I want to cover with you. One is, if somebody wanted to do this, like, give us real high level, just top bullets. What's the simplest way to start? What's it cost? I mean, I don't have a big fancy studio or studios like you do. You know, mine looks quite different than all the great stuff that you got there. But how would somebody begin? What's the first step?
The most important start of anything inside of podcasting is to make sure you understand what your story and focus is. That's where you want to dig and find somebody like me, because over an hour conversation, we just did this with a sports, hopefully, podcaster inside of the DC area 2 days ago. I talked with him for about an hour. We talked about a lot of the concepts and the problems that he's experiencing inside of the radio influence. And it's just the way that radio is built. You're always going to have problems inside of radio influence, mostly because it's not yours. You get to kowtow to somebody else and do what they want you to do because they're allowing it. Inside of podcasting, you get to create the programming that you want. You get to go where you want. You don't have to do things because someone else says you must. You get to create the content that you've always wanted. So understanding what you want to create or convey is the most important part. Again, the people that are listening, especially the people that are builders that want to start their own podcast, and go back and listen to where you and I talked about what that means.
Right.
There are many core concepts that builders have that other builders don't have. And if you don't tell people about it, no one's ever going to know about it.
That's right.
A lot of people might think that that's braggadocious and that it's giant ego trip. Well, frankly, it is. But what I always tell people is when they say, man, that really sounds like an ego trip, Mike, I always go, right, but if you're not going to toot your own horn, who's going to toot your horn for you?
Well, you know, and a lot of times when we talk to builders, I mean, they are in stealth mode and they don't realize it. Nobody really knows they exist and they don't really know what to do. So I think this is very, very helpful. Mike, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you, and who should get in touch with you moving forward here? And then we're going to put all your information online as well along with this. So.
Excellent. Yeah, we'll drop you all the information. In fact, you'd mentioned some sort of a slideshow or something you can show people what the studios that I have look like, including the podcast bug, which we didn't really get to talk about. I want to show that.
I know it. We'll do that next time. Okay,
no problem. The best way to contact us and the most expedient way is to go to 2guystalking.com. That's the number 2guystalking.com. Click on the contact button that's right there on the left-hand side. Fill out that short, quick web form, and we've got you. We've got all your information. We'll be able to contact you and get you started on your podcast adventure.
Wow. I tell you what, there's so many things that I want to cover with you, and so this will be fun to get this one out. Folks, thank you, builders, for listening. Thanks for participating, and realtors and other people in the home building community. Give us your thoughts on this. Mike, I'll link you in. So if you guys have questions for Mike, reach out to him. He's an outstanding resource. And Mike, I got to get pictures of the mobile bug. I mean,
It's actually on the website.
That is too cool.
Yeah.
If I look forward to one day getting so good that I've got those cool microphones like you do.
It's not about being good. You just got to pay for them. They do the same thing as any other mic.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, Mike, it's great talking to you. Thank you so much for spending the time today and all the great value you added to everybody. I'll put your information in the show notes, and I'll be talking to you again soon, okay?
I can't wait to do it again, Ron. Thanks again, and thanks to everybody that's listening. I really appreciate your time. And again, I look forward to hearing your perspective.
Absolutely. All right, brother. We'll see you later.
Sounds great.
Take care now.
You too.